Sleep forever in that dirty cell, mother, while we enjoy your beautiful farm. My son Tyler's words hurt my ears as the policewoman put cold metal rings on my hands. The metal was so cold it made my old hands shake. But my heart hurt more when I looked at my own boy laughing at me like I was nothing. His wife Sandra stood next to him with a big mean smile on her face. She was happy to see me going to jail. She moved close to Tyler and said something quiet in his ear. Tyler laughed even louder this time. He wanted me to hear him from where I was standing with my hands tied together. The judge hit his wooden hammer on the desk and told everyone to be quiet. But it did not matter anymore. The judge already said I was going to jail for 5 years. They said I stole money and did bad things with papers. But I never did any of those things. Tyler and Sandra made up lies. They made fake papers. They paid people to tell lies about me. Even the judge believed all their lies. Tyler and Sandra stood up from their chairs. He put his arm around her and they walked to the big doors like they just won a big prize. Sandra looked back at me one more time. Her eyes were cold and mean. She did not see me as a person. She only saw me as something in her way that was now gone. They walked outside together holding hands and laughing. They were going to celebrate. I watched them go through the doors. They were probably going to eat expensive food and drink fancy drinks. Maybe take a trip to the beach. My farm that I worked on for 50 years was now theirs to take. The policewoman pulled my arm and made me stand up. My old knees hurt when I moved too fast. I am 75 years old and everything hurts now. But I made myself stand tall. I would not let them see me cry. Not here with all these people watching me. They already think I am a bad person. As the policewoman took me out the side door, I heard people talking. Some felt sorry for me. Others thought I was a terrible person. An old lady who used to be my friend looked away when she saw me. Felt so embarrassed. It was hard to breathe. The hallway going to the jail smelled like strong cleaning soap and sadness. My shoes made squeaky sounds on the old floor as we walked. Other people who were going to jail walked past me. Some were crying. Others just looked at the ground. Everyone looked so sad and lost. But I was not lost yet. I still had hope. We came to a small room with no windows. The walls were old and dirty. There were plastic chairs stuck to the floor. An old man in a uniform sat behind a metal desk. He was looking at papers. Very slowly, like he had done this job forever. He looked up when we came in. His name tag said Officer James Cooper. His face had many lines that showed he had a hard life. His eyes looked tired but not mean. They were kind eyes. That surprised me. His uniform was very clean and neat, like he cared about looking good even in this sad place. The policewoman talked to James for a bit. She gave him a folder with my papers in it. Then she left. The door closed with a loud bang that made me jump. Now I was alone with this old officer. James opened the folder and started reading my papers quietly. I sat down on one of the plastic chairs. Every part of my body hurt. I am 75 and I feel every single year in my bones. The metal rings were still on my hands. The metal felt warm now from touching my skin. I looked down trying to understand how this all happened. My own son sent me to jail. My own baby boy that I held when he was sick. The little boy I raised by myself after his daddy died from a bad heart when Tyler was only 10 years old. The man I trusted with my whole heart because he was my family, my only child. And now he was outside celebrating. He thought he won. He thought I was just a weak old lady who would die in jail while he took everything I owned. But he did not know something important. Something that would change everything. James kept reading the papers. Sometimes his eyebrows moved together. He turned pages and wrote things in an old notebook. I used that quiet time carefully. Very slowly so he would not see, I moved my hand toward the inside pocket of my old brown jacket. I wore this jacket every day of the trial. It was old and plain with worn-out elbows. Nothing special. But it had deep pockets that nobody noticed. In one of those pockets, folded into a tiny square, was a piece of paper I made last night in my cell. That paper was my only hope. My fingers shook as I slowly pulled it out bit by bit. I had to be so quiet. The paper was warm from being close to my body. It was a little wet from my nervous sweat. I held it between my fingers. It was just a small piece of paper, but it felt so heavy and important. On that paper, ripped from a cheap notebook, was a name, a phone number, and words that would save me. James closed the folder and leaned back in his chair. The chair made a loud sound. He let out a big breath like he was so tired of this job. He looked at me with soft eyes. Maybe he felt sorry for me. Maybe he was just a good man stuck in a bad job. The truck to take you to the big jail will be here in 20 minutes, Mrs. Palmer. Do you need the bathroom? Some water? His voice was that surprised me. I did not expect anyone to be nice to me today. Not after everything that happened. Water, please, I said quietly. My voice came out weak and broken. I had not had any water for many hours. James nodded and slowly got up from his chair. His knees made cracking sounds like mine do every morning. He was an old man too. Probably close to retirement, with that tired look on his face. He walked toward a small table in the corner. There was a plastic water jug and paper cups there. His back was turned to me. This was my chance. My only chance. I did exactly what I practiced in my head 100 times. I slid the folded paper onto his desk right next to my folder. I put it so it looked like it was part of the papers, but where he could see it. My heart was beating so fast and loud. I thought James could hear it from across the room. I felt like drums were banging in my ears. The other policewoman was gone. Tyler and Sandra were outside celebrating. James still had his back to me, getting the water. His hands shook a little as he filled the cup. He came back with the water and gave it to me. I took the cup with my tied hands. The chains made a soft clinking sound. I was glad to have something to hold. Helped hide my shaking hands. I drank the water slowly, even though my body wanted me to drink it all at once. The water was warm and tasted like plastic. But it was the best thing I had tasted in days. James sat down again. His eyes went right to the paper. I saw when he noticed it. His eyes got small and confused. He stayed still for a second, looking at the paper like it appeared by magic. Then, very carefully, like it might explode, he picked it up with his fingers. I kept drinking water and pretended I did not see anything. But I was watching him from the corner of my eye. Every muscle in my body was tight and scared. Everything depended on this moment. On what he would do. If he would believe me or think I was a crazy old lady making up stories. James slowly opened the paper. His hands were big and rough with scars on them. He had worked hard with those hands when he was young. I watched every tiny change in his face as he read the words I wrote with shaking hands last night. Saw his brows go up. I saw his mouth open a little, making a small O shape. I saw the exact moment his confused face changed to complete shock. The paper said this. My son does not know who I married last year. Call Daniel Crawford at this number. Tell him his wife was arrested. If you help me, you will get a house and money for your family. Under those words was a phone number written in black pen. Each number was written very carefully so it was easy to read. James looked up at me. His tired eyes were now completely awake and alert. They were full of questions. So many questions. But most of all, he looked like he could not believe what he just read. Daniel Crawford, he whispered. His voice shook a little. The Daniel Crawford. I nodded my head once slowly. I looked right in his eyes without looking away. I needed him to see I was telling the truth. That this was not a joke. That I was not a crazy prisoner making up impossible dreams. James' face turned white. He knew that name. Everyone in this whole state knew that name. Daniel Crawford was not just a rich man. He owned everything. Hotels, restaurants, shopping centers, investments worth millions and millions of dollars. He knew important people all the way up to the president. He was the kind of man who could open any door. A man whose name made things happen. And that man was my husband. James looked at the paper again, then at me, then back at the paper. His hands shook a little as he held that small piece of paper that could change his whole life and mine. I saw his throat move when he swallowed. I saw his eyes get wet, but no tears came out. Just the heavy feeling of too many broken dreams over too many years. "Ma'am," he finally said so quietly I almost could not hear. "This is real." "It is real," I said before he could finish. Every single word. He folded the paper carefully like it was made of gold and put it in his shirt pocket. Then he just sat there thinking. Trying to understand how Daniel Crawford's wife could be sitting in front of him with metal rings on her hands. Going to jail for 5 years because of her own son. And I knew I needed to tell him. Or, not everything. There was no time. But enough so he would understand. So he would know this was not just about money or getting back at Tyler. This was about the truth. This was about what was right. "How did this happen?" James asked. His voice was so sad. How could he not know? How could he not protect you? I closed my eyes for a moment and let the memories come. I met Daniel 8 months ago. Those 8 months were the happiest time of my life after so many lonely years. My first husband, Tyler's daddy, died 20 years ago. A sudden heart attack left me all alone at 55 with a grown son who almost never came to visit. I had a big house that was too quiet. For all those years I just accepted being alone. I thought this was my life now. Taking care of my farm. Reading books. Watching TV until I fell asleep on the couch. Sometimes Tyler would visit, but he was always in a hurry. Always making excuses about being busy with work. Then Sandra came into his life and he visited even less. But 8 months ago everything changed. I went to flower show in town. Friend made me go. She said I needed to get out more. I needed to talk to people and live a little. And there in front of some beautiful roses that reminded me of my mother's garden I saw him. Daniel Crawford. At first I did not know who he was. I just saw a handsome man with silver hair wearing a nice suit. He was looking at the same roses with sad eyes. The same sadness I felt. The sadness of someone who lost something precious and is trying to find it again in strange places. We talked about the flowers first. Then about gardens. Then about our lives. I found out his wife died 4 years ago from cancer. He told me he came to this flower show every month because it was where he took his wife on their first date. I told him about my farm. About how the animals were the only thing keeping me from being too lonely. We met again the next week. Then again and again. Coffee became dinners. Dinners became long walks in the park. Before I knew it I was in love like a teenager. My stomach got butterflies every time my phone rang and it was him. Daniel was honest with me from the start. He told me who he was, what he did, how much money he had. But he asked for one thing. Keep it secret. He said there were people who hated him. Bad business people who would use anything against him. He told me about threats he got before. People trying to blackmail him. Times when people he loved became targets just because they were close to him. He asked me to keep our marriage a secret for a while. Just until he could make sure I was safe. Until he could set up protection. Until everything was ready. I said yes without thinking because after so many lonely years. After so much silence, Daniel gave me back something I thought was gone forever. The ability to feel alive. To laugh. To wake up every morning happy. We got married in a small ceremony at his big house outside the city. Just us two. A judge and 2 witnesses Daniel trusted completely. It was simple and quiet and perfect. We wore simple rings that we hid under our clothes. He kissed my forehead and promised me soon we could tell everyone. Soon we would not have to hide. But I made a mistake. A mistake I now know was terrible. I did not tell Tyler anything. I thought it would only be for a few weeks. Maybe a month. I thought Daniel would finish getting everything ready. Then I could tell my son. I could say his mother found love again. That I was not alone anymore. That someone was taking care of me and making me happy. But before I could do that, everything fell apart. Started 4 months ago. Tyler showed up at my farm without calling first. That was strange because he always called first. Sandra was with him like always. Stuck to his side like glue. They came in acting nervous and strange. Tyler looked around like he was checking how much everything was worth. Sandra touched my furniture with her fingers. She made comments about how old everything looked. How I should spend money to make things look nicer. They asked about my money. They wanted to know how much I had saved. How much the farm was worth. If I had other properties or insurance. I told them I was fine. That I had enough money to live well. Not to worry about me. But I did not tell them details. Something about the way they asked made me uncomfortable. There was something hungry in their eyes. Something I did not like. Tyler kept pushing. He said he had money problems. His business was not doing well. He needed a loan. Just temporary, he promised. Just until things got better. Maybe $30,000. Maybe more. I told him I did not have that much right away. That was true. Most of my money was locked up in investments I could not touch without losing money. But I said I could help with $8,000. All the money I had in my bank account. Sandra's face changed. I saw anger flash in her eyes before she hid it. Tyler looked disappointed and frustrated, but he took the $8,000. He promised to pay me back in 2 months. He never did. A week later they came back. This time they were more urgent. They needed more. $15,000. It was an emergency. A business opportunity they could not miss. They begged me. Tyler held my hands and looked at me with those eyes I knew since he was a baby. And I, God forgive me, gave in again. I took the money out of one of my investments. I paid the penalty. I gave it to him. That money never came back either. Then they started visiting more often. Always asking for more. Always. With new excuses. New emergencies. I started saying no because I was beginning to understand something was wrong. This was not normal. They were using me. That is when everything changed. Tyler came one day with papers. Contracts. Documents full of legal words I could not understand. He said I needed to sign them. It was just paperwork, he said. Reorganizing family property to protect me from taxes. From legal problems if something happened to me. I said I wanted a lawyer to look at them first. That is when I saw something in my son's eyes I never saw before. Something dark and scary. Don't you trust me, Mom? He asked. There was poison in his voice. I am your son. Your only family. Are you going to let me down because you are paranoid? Sandra jumped in with her sweet fake voice. She talked about how hard it was for Tyler growing up without a daddy. How I was all he had. How he just wanted to protect me. To make sure my future was safe. And I, God help me, sign those papers. I signed because he was my son. Because even though we were not close anymore. Even though Sandra had changed him in ways I did not like, he was still my boy. The baby I carried. The child I raised alone after his father died. I could not believe he would hurt me. But I was so wrong. 3 weeks later I got a letter in the mail. Lawsuit. My own son was suing me. He said I stole money from him. That I forged documents. That I took money from bank accounts we supposedly had together. The same papers I signed because I trusted him were now being used as proof against me. Tyler changed everything after I signed them. He made the papers look different. He created a story where I was the criminal, where I stole from my own son, where I took advantage of his trust, hired a lawyer, the best one I could afford with the money I had left. But Tyler had been so careful. He had fake witnesses, bank papers that looked real, emails he said I sent but I never wrote, text messages I never sent. It was a perfect trap. And the worst part was Daniel knew nothing about it. He was out of the country the whole time doing business in Asia. We talked on the phone but I did not want to worry him with my problems. I thought I could fix myself. I thought the truth would come out. I thought everything would be okay. How stupid I was. The trial was a nightmare. My lawyer tried his best but the evidence against me was too much. Tyler cried on the witness stand. He acted like the sad son betrayed by his evil mother. Sandra cried fake tears. She talked about how I always controlled money. How I threatened to take Tyler out of my will if he did not do what I wanted. The jury believed all of it. Guilty. 5 years in prison. Daniel came back to the country the day before they sentenced me. But it was too late. I did not have time to call him, to explain, to ask for help. They moved me from the courtroom to this room so fast. Now I was here telling pieces of this nightmare to a jail officer who held my only hope in his pocket. My son thinks he won, I told James. My voice was stronger now. He and Sandra think they're gonna take all my money, my farm, everything I built over 50 years. But they do not know Daniel exists. They do not know he is going to find out what they did. And when he does, I did not finish. I did not need to. James understood. He took the paper out of his pocket again. He read it a third time like he needed to make sure the words were still the same. House, he said quietly. You can really give me a house. Daniel can, I told him. And he will. He is a man who keeps his promises. If you tell him I ask for this, if you explain what happened, he will reward you. He has houses all over the state. Properties he keeps as investments. He can give you one. He can give you more than that. He can change your whole life. James closed his eyes. Saw one tear roll down his old wrinkled cheek. When he opened his eyes again, he had made his decision. I have a grandson, he said softly. Me. He is 9 years old. His parents both died in a car crash 2 years ago. He lives with me and my wife in a tiny apartment we can barely pay for. Tommy sleeps on the couch. My wife has diabetes. She needs expensive medicine our insurance does not cover. I work extra hours just to keep food on the table. His voice broke. If you are telling the truth, if there is even a small chance this is real, I will make that call. Because my family needs a miracle as much as you do. I looked right in his eyes. Call him. James took his phone out of his desk. It was an old phone with a cracked screen and a worn-out case. His hands shook as he typed in the number I wrote on the paper. I saw him stop for a second. His finger hung over the call button like in that last moment he realized how real this was. But then he pressed it. The sound of the phone ringing filled the small room. 1 ring. 2 rings. 3 rings. I held my breath. It had been 4 days since I last talked to Daniel. 4 days that felt like forever. He called the night before the trial, but I was so upset and scared I could barely talk. I told him everything was fine. That I was just tired. That I loved him and we would talk soon. I lied. And now I was paying the price for that lie. 4 rings. 5 rings. James looked at me with worry like he thought no one would answer. Like this was a cruel fantasy of a desperate woman. But then someone picked up. Crawford speaking. Daniel's voice was sharp and professional. It was his business voice. The one he used when he was in important meetings. James almost dropped the phone. He cleared his throat trying to find his voice. Mr. Crawford, my name is James Cooper. I am a corrections officer at the county jail. I am calling because he stopped and looked at me. He nodded. Because your wife asked me to contact you. The silence on the other end was complete. So complete I thought the call dropped. But then I heard Daniel breathing. Faster and faster. More intense. Margaret. His voice had completely changed. He was no longer the cold businessman. He was a scared man. What happened to Margaret? Where is she? Mr. Cooper, she was arrested. Convicted. She is here with me now waiting for transport to the state prison. She gave me this number. She asked me to call you. She says you are her husband. Arrested. The word came out like a roar. Why did no one tell me? When did this happen? Where is she now? James handed the phone to me. My tied hands made it hard to hold, but I managed. When I heard Daniel's voice, so familiar, so loved, something inside me broke. The tears I had been holding back for days, for weeks, finally came out. Daniel, my voice. Was barely a whisper. Daniel, I am so sorry. I should have told you. I should have told you everything from the start. Margaret, my love, what is happening? Talk slowly. Where are you? Who arrested you? Why, Tyler, I said. My son's name came out like poison. He said I stole from him. He forged papers. He lied in court. They gave me 5 years, Daniel. 5 years. Silence again. But this time it was different. It was the quiet before a storm. When Daniel spoke again, his voice was scary calm, controlled. But I could hear the anger just under the surface. Your son did this. Your own son sent you to prison. He and Sandra. They planned everything. They wanted my money, my farm. They thought I was alone, that no one would protect me. They do not know you exist, Daniel. They do not know anything about us. Where exactly are you right now? At the county jail. Processing room. They are going to move me in less than 15 minutes. They are not moving you anywhere, Daniel said. His tone left no room for argument. Put the officer back on. I gave the phone back to James. He took it with shaking hands and put it to his ear. Mr. Crawford. Daniel's voice was so loud I could hear it from where I sat. Listen very carefully. My wife is not getting on that transport. She is going to stay exactly where she is until I get there with my lawyers. Do you understand me? I do not have the authority to stop a scheduled transfer, sir. There are rules, procedures that. Let me tell you something, Mr. Cooper. In less than 5 minutes, Judge William Harris is going to get an emergency call. He will issue a temporary order stopping the sentence because of problems with the case. In less than 10 minutes you will have a signed order stopping any transfer of prisoner Margaret Palmer until the case is looked at again. And if anything happens to my wife before I get there, if anyone moves her even 1 inch from where she is now, I will personally make sure every person involved loses their job and faces charges. Have I been clear enough? James had gone completely white. He nodded even though Daniel could not see him. Yes, sir. Crystal clear. Good. Now put my wife back on. James gave the phone back to me almost like it was a precious treasure. Daniel, I whispered. I did not know what else to do. I'm so sorry for not telling you before. For not asking for help from the beginning. Do not apologize. His voice softened. None of this is your fault. Do you hear me? None of it. But I need you to listen carefully. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to get you out of there. And your son. That coward who calls himself your family is going to pay for every second of pain he caused you. He is my son, Daniel. Even after everything, he is still my son. He stopped being your son the moment he decided to betray you like this. Daniel paused. When he spoke again, his voice had a dark promise in it. But do not worry about that now. Focus on staying safe. Do not talk to anyone. Do not sign anything. Do not accept anything they offer you. My legal team will be there in less than an hour. The best criminal lawyer in the state. Marcus Chin. He is already on his way. He will take care of everything. And James? I asked, looking at the officer who made this call possible. Promised you would help him. He has a grandson who needs support. Officer Cooper is going to get everything you promised him and more, Daniel said. After I finish with this, he and his family will never have to worry about money again. You have my word. James, who had been listening, closed his eyes. A look of total relief crossed his face. Like a heavy weight he had carried for decades was suddenly lifted. I love you, I told Daniel. The words felt too small for what I felt. Thank you for not giving up on me. I would never give up on you, he said. We are family now, Margaret. And family protects each other. Stay there. Do not move. I'm coming. The call ended. I gave the phone back to James and we sat in silence. The clock on the wall showed the minutes passing with a tick-tock that seemed painfully slow. Every second was torture. I was waiting and hoping. 8 minutes later, the phone on James' desk rang. He answered right away. Cooper here, he said. Then his face changed completely. Yes, sir. Yes, understood. Right away. He hung up and looked at me with a mix of shock and disbelief. Judge Harris just issued a temporary stop on your transfer. You have to stay here until your legal team arrives. He was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Palmer, I do not know who you really are. But your husband just moved mountains in less than 10 minutes. I smiled for the first time in days. In weeks. Because finally, after all the pain, all the betrayal, all the unfairness, something was going right. Daniel was coming. And when Daniel Crawford decided to fix something, nothing and no one could stop him. But while we waited, as time crawled by so slowly, I could not stop thinking about Tyler. Where was he right now? Probably at some expensive restaurant drinking champagne. Laughing with Sandra about how easy it was to trick me. They were probably already making plans about how to spend my money. What to buy first. How to divide the fortune they thought was theirs. They had no idea about the storm coming for them. They had no idea the most powerful man in the state was about to use all his power against them. They had no idea they made the biggest mistake of their lives by underestimating a 75-year-old woman who survived being a widow, loneliness, only to find love again and marry a man who would move heaven and earth to protect what he loved. 50 minutes later, the door burst open. A man entered like a hurricane. He was tall, about 45, in a perfectly fitted dark suit with a leather bag that screamed money. His black hair was perfectly styled. His sharp eyes were intelligent and alert. He walked with the confidence of someone who never lost a case. Marcus Chen, he said, shaking my hand first, then James. I am Mrs. Palmer's attorney and we are leaving here right now. Behind him came 2 assistants carrying more papers. More documents. Everything needed to start taking apart the lies Tyler built. And behind them finally came Daniel. My Daniel. He looked exactly like I remembered. But there was something different in his eyes. An intensity one never saw before. A controlled fury that made the air around him feel dangerous. He was 68, but right then he looked like a warrior ready for battle. Our eyes met across the room. He crossed the space between us in 3 long steps. He knelt in front of me, not caring that his expensive suit touched the dirty floor. He took my tied hands in his. My love, he whispered. His voice was broken. Forgive me for not being here when you needed me. You are here now, I said. Tears ran down my cheeks. That is all that matters. Daniel stood up and turned to Marcus. I want those handcuffs off her now. I want every document reviewed. I want every mistake exposed. And I want the name of every person involved in this conspiracy against my wife. Marcus smiled. It was the smile Of a hunter who found his prey. We are already on it, Mr. Crawford. I promise by this time tomorrow your wife will be free and those responsible will be answering some very uncomfortable questions. Daniel looked at James, who had stood up. He was standing next to his desk watching everything with complete amazement. Mr. Cooper, Daniel said, walking toward him. My wife told me you made this call possible. That you risked your job to help her. I want you to know that will not be forgotten. James swallowed hard. She needed help. That is all. You did more than help. You gave her hope when she had none. And I always pay my debts. Daniel took out his phone and called a number. Michael, it is me. I need you to prepare the house in Riverside Meadows. Yes, the 3-bedroom with the big backyard. It is for the Cooper family. I want the paperwork ready tomorrow. Make sure it is fully furnished and ready to move into right away. James staggered. He had to grab the desk to stay standing. Mr. Crawford, I cannot. That is too much. It is not enough, Daniel said. But it is a start. The next 2 days were a whirlwind of legal work I could barely understand. Marcus Chin worked like a machine. He took apart every document in the case. He found mistakes my first lawyer never even looked for. Turned out Tyler made errors. Small ones but enough. Dates that did not match. Signatures that looked slightly wrong. Testimonies with problems that no one questioned because everyone assumed a mother would never be betrayed like this by her own son. Daniel took me out of that jail that same night. Not directly home. That would have been impossible with the court order still active. But to a safe house at one of his properties while the emergency appeal was processed. The house was a mansion on the edge of the city. Beautiful gardens and a tall fence around it. There was security everywhere. Men in dark suits with earpieces watching every entrance, every exit. Daniel was taking no chances. He said once Tyler found out what was happening he might try anything to stop it. Daniel wanted to be ready for anything. That first night in the mansion after the lawyers left, and we were finally alone, Daniel held me for hours. He did not say much. He just held me while I cried. All the pain I kept inside. The pain of being betrayed by my own blood. The pain of being so blind, so trusting, so foolish. You are not foolish, Daniel said when I finally said those thoughts out loud. You are a mother who loved her son. There is nothing foolish about that. I loved him, I whispered against his chest. God help me, I still love him. And that is killing me. I know, Daniel said. He pulled back a little so he could look in my eyes. And that is why we are going to do this the right way. Not for revenge even though it is deserved. But for justice. For the truth. So everyone knows you did nothing wrong. The next morning Marcus arrived with news. He found something. Something big. One of the witnesses who testified against me in the trial. An accountant who supposedly looked at my finances and found problems was willing to talk. To tell the truth. Because it turned out Tyler had not paid him what he promised. Now the accountant was angry and scared of being pulled down too when everything came out. His name was Gregory Bell. Nervous man in his 40s. He looked like someone who had not slept well in weeks. Marcus brought him to the mansion that afternoon. A notary came too with recording equipment. We were going to record every word. Gregory could barely look at me as he sat in the living room Daniel had turned into a temporary legal headquarters. There were papers everywhere. Open laptops. Phones ringing constantly. It looked like an entire law office had been moved into this house. Mrs. Palmer, Gregory started. His voice shook. I did not know it would go this far. You have to believe me. When Tyler hired me he said he just needed some documents checked. Some numbers adjusted for taxes. He paid me $4,000 up front and promised another $15,000 when everything was done. And what exactly did you do? Marcus asked. His voice was calm but with a dangerous edge. I made fake financial reports, Gregory admitted. I created transactions that never happened. I made it look like Mrs. Palmer had been moving large amounts of money from joint accounts with Tyler into her own private accounts. But none of that was real. Was all made up on my computer. And the withdrawals I supposedly made. I asked, feeling sick to my stomach. The $100,000 the prosecutor said I stole from my own son. They never existed, Gregory said. Tears ran down his face now. Tyler gave me access to old bank accounts that were already closed. I changed the statements to show recent activity. Changed dates. I made up transaction numbers. Anyone with proper accounting knowledge would have caught the fraud in minutes. But your lawyer never asked for an independent audit. Because I could not afford it, I said bitterly. Tyler made sure to freeze my accounts so fast I barely had money for the public defender. Marcus was taking notes furiously. Daniel, who had been listening from a corner with his arms crossed, finally spoke. Was Sandra involved in this? Tyler's wife. Gregory nodded hard. She was the one who contacted me first. Tyler did not even know my name at first. Sandra had been planning this for months, maybe years. She showed me documents. She explained exactly what she needed me to do. It was her plan from the beginning. Tyler just followed her orders. That hurt more than I expected. Part of me wanted to believe my son was also a victim. That Sandra manipulated him. Poisoned his mind against me. But hearing that he actively participated, that he followed her orders so willingly, felt like a knife in my heart. Why are you confessing now? Daniel asked. Why risk it? Because Tyler threatened me, Gregory said. His voice broke. After the trial, when I went to get the rest of my payment, he laughed in my face. He told me I would never see that money. Then he told me if I talked to anyone about what I did, he would make sure I was the only one who went to prison. That he had documents making it look like I was the mastermind behind everything. That he was just an innocent victim I tricked. And those documents probably exist, Marcus said. Tyler is smarter than we thought. He created protection for himself. But now we have this. Daniel pointed to the camera that recorded every word. We have his confession. We have proof of criminal conspiracy. And with this we can start tearing down everything they built. Gregory's statement was just the beginning. Over the next days, Marcus and his team worked without stopping to track every move Tyler and Sandra made in the last year. They found hidden bank accounts opened right after my arrest. Large money transfers scheduled to happen the day after I was sent to the big prison. They had even already contacted a real estate agent to sell my farm. My farm. The place where I raised Tyler. Where his daddy died. Where every corner held memories of 50 years of family life. And they were going to sell it without thinking twice. Without any guilt. But what broke? My heart the most was what we found a week after my temporary release. It turned out Tyler had a daughter from a previous marriage he kept secret. A 7-year-old girl named Emma who lived with her mother in another state. And Sandra, in her endless cruelty, had been feeding that child lies about me. She told Emma her grandmother was a criminal, thief, a bad woman who tried to steal her daddy's money. That because of me her dad could not send them as much money as before. That I was the reason she could not have the things she wanted. We found this out when Emma's mother, a woman named Lisa Morgan, contacted us directly. She had seen the news. Because yes, by this point the press had started covering the story. Daniel Crawford's wife, unjustly jailed by her own son, was the kind of scandal that sold newspapers. Lisa came to see us bringing Emma with her. She was a beautiful little girl with Tyler's smile, but with an innocence on her face my son lost a long time ago. When she saw me, Emma hid behind her mother. Stared. Like I was a monster. "I'm so sorry," Lisa said. Her eyes were full of tears. I did not know Sandra was telling her those things. Tyler barely visits us. When he does, she is always with him, controlling every conversation. I thought she was just being protective. But now I understand she was manipulating everything. I knelt down in front of Emma. I kept my distance so I would not scare her more. "Hello, Emma. My name is Margaret. I am your grandmother. I know they told you bad things about me. But none of that is true. I would never hurt your daddy. I love him. Even now. Even after everything." Emma looked at me with those big innocent eyes. "You are not bad. No, sweetheart. I'm not." "Then why does Daddy say you are?" I did not have an answer for that. How do you explain to a 7-year-old child that her father is a liar? That her father planned to send his own mother to prison for money? Could not. I would not destroy the image she had of Tyler no matter what my son did to me. "Sometimes adults make mistakes," I finally said. "Big mistakes. And your daddy made a very big one. But that does not mean he does not love you." "'Kay," Emma nodded slowly, still unsure but less scared. Lisa put her hand on my shoulder, squeezing gently. "Tyler never told me you were so kind," she said. "He never talked about you at all. In fact, I understand why now." That night after Lisa and Emma left, I sat with Daniel in the mansion's garden. The sun was setting. The sky was painted orange and pink. It was beautiful and peaceful, completely different from the storm inside me. "You have a granddaughter," Daniel said softly. "A granddaughter you did not even know existed." "Tyler hid her from me for years," I said. I felt a new wave of betrayal. I have a granddaughter and he decided I did not deserve to know her. What kind of person does that? "The kind of person who is capable of sending his mother to prison for money," Daniel said. He took my hand. "But now you know her. And if Lisa agrees, you can be part of Emma's life. You can be the grandmother she deserves." "After we finish with this," I said. Something hardened inside me. "After Tyler and Sandra pay for what they did. Then I can think about being a grandmother." Daniel smiled, but there was no warmth in it. It was the smile of a man who knew justice was coming. "Speaking of that, Marcus has news. The prosecutor reviewed the new evidence. They are dropping all charges against you tomorrow in a special hearing. And they are issuing arrest warrants for Tyler, Sandra, and Gregory for conspiracy, fraud, and lying under oath." Gasp. "Tomorrow." "Tomorrow," Daniel confirmed. "But there is more. Turns out Tyler organized an event for tomorrow night. A celebration at a private club. He invited friends, family, business partners. He was going to officially announce he inherited your fortune. That he was ready to invest in new businesses. Basically, he was going to celebrate his victory over you in front of everyone." The irony was almost too perfect. "What are you thinking?" I asked, seeing the calculating look on Daniel's face. "I am thinking," he said slowly, "that it would be a shame if he missed his own celebration party." The hearing the next day was quick and devastatingly effective. Judge Harris, the same one who presided over my original trial, looked very uncomfortable as he reviewed the new evidence Marcus presented. Gregory Bell's recorded confession, the forensic analysis of the fake documents, the inconsistencies in the testimonies no one questioned because they seemed too detailed to be lies. The prosecutor, a middle-aged man named Robert Chen, Marcus' younger brother, stood up. He formally said the state was dropping all charges against Margaret Palmer, that there had been a huge miscarriage of justice, that they had been fooled by a carefully planned criminal conspiracy. "Mrs. Palmer," Judge Harris said, "for the first time since this nightmare began, I heard something like respect in the voice of someone from the justice system. On behalf of this court, I offer my deepest apologies. What was done to you is inexcusable. I assure you those responsible will face the full weight of the law." I nodded, unable to speak. Tears ran down my cheeks. But this time they were not tears of pain. They were tears of relief, of justice, of vindication. After weeks of being treated like a criminal, of being looked at with disgust, of carrying the shame of an unfair conviction, someone in authority was finally saying the words I needed to hear. I was not guilty. The judge hit his wooden hammer. Arrest warrants are issued for Tyler Palmer, Sandra Palmer and Gregory Bell on charges of criminal conspiracy, fraud, forgery and perjury. Officers are authorized to proceed immediately. Daniel, sitting next to me, squeezed my hand. Marcus closed his briefcase with a satisfying click. We won the first battle. But the war was not over yet. Because winning in court was one thing. Making Tyler and Sandra fully understand what they lost, that was something else. We left the court surrounded by security. Reporters swarmed us, shouting questions, pushing each other to get photo, comment, anything. Daniel shielded me with his body as we made our way to the waiting car. I did not say anything to the press. Not yet. There would be time for public statements later. For now I just wanted to breathe. I just wanted to process that I was finally free. Back at the mansion, Daniel led me to the master bedroom. He bought me new clothes, all in my exact size. Beautiful dresses, comfortable but pretty shoes. Everything a woman would need to feel human again after weeks of humiliation. He prepared a bath with nice-smelling salts, candles, soft music. Rest, he told me, kissing my forehead. You need to be ready for tonight. Tonight. Tyler's celebration. The event where he planned to brag about his victory. About the fortune he stole. About the bright future he thought was waiting for him. He had no idea that right now arrest warrants with his name on them were being processed. That police officers were preparing to execute them. That his perfect world was about to crumble in front of everyone. Daniel arranged things so the arrests would not happen until after the event. He wanted Tyler to have his imagined moment of glory. He wanted him to celebrate, toast, to feel invincible, because the fall would be much harder from that height. And I was going to be there to see it. I sank into the bath, letting the hot water relax muscles I kept tense for too long. I closed my eyes and thought about everything that happened. How I got to this point. A 75-year-old woman who lost everything only to discover she had more strength than she ever imagined. More resources, more allies, and a husband who would move heaven and earth to protect her. After the bath, I found a dress laid out on the bed. It was elegant but not flashy. Deep green, long-sleeved, falling just below my knees. Perfect for a woman my age. Sophisticated without trying to look younger than I was. It came with a simple gold necklace and low-heeled shoes I knew I could wear for hours without pain. I dressed slowly, taking my time. I carefully put on makeup covering the marks of the past weeks. The dark circles, paleness, the traces of stress that aged my face more than any calendar year could. When I finished, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. It was me, but transformed. I was no longer the broken, humiliated prisoner. I was Margaret Crawford, wife of one of the most powerful men in the state. A woman who faced betrayal and came out the other side. Not just surviving but ready for battle. Daniel entered the room already dressed in a perfect suit. When he saw me, he stopped. "You are beautiful," he said. There was real amazement in his voice. "Absolutely beautiful." "I feel like a warrior preparing for battle," I admitted. "Well," Daniel smiled, offering me his arm. "That is exactly what you are." The private club where Tyler organized his celebration was in the heart of the city. It was an exclusive place. One of those where you need connections just to get a reservation. Of course, Daniel was a founding member. He invested in the place when it opened 12 years ago. That meant we had full access. No questions asked. No problems. We arrived just as the event was at its peak. Cars lined up at the entrance. Valet workers rushing back and forth. Well-dressed people coming and going. Laughing. drinking champagne even before entering the building. It was the kind of scene that screamed success, money, celebration. Daniel told the driver to park in a spot where we could see the entrance but not be easily seen. He wanted to know exactly who was inside before making our grand entrance. He wanted the perfect moment. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Daniel asked, taking my hand. "We can still leave. Let the police handle everything. You do not have to face him this way." I looked toward the building, toward the bright lights, toward the laughter I could hear even from here. Somewhere in there was Tyler, my son. Child I carried, federal raised. The man who betrayed me in the cruelest way possible. "I need to do this," I said firmly. "I need him to see me. I need him to know he did not win. That he was never going to win." Daniel nodded. He knew there was no changing my mind. He took out his phone and sent a quick message. Seconds later he got a reply. "Marcus is inside," he reported. "Says Tyler is in the center of everything showing off. Sandra is by his side wearing a dress that probably cost what most people earn in a month. They are serving $400 a bottle champagne. Your money, of course. Of course. My money paying for their fake celebration." The irony was almost poetic. "There is more." Daniel continued reading another message. "Tyler just made an announcement. Says he is launching a new investment company. That he has $1.5 million in starting capital. He is looking for partners. He was literally trying to recruit investors using my stolen fortune. $1.5 million. I did not even have that much cash money. There were savings, investments, properties, but not $1.5 million in cash. That meant he was lying again, making promises he could not keep, deceiving more people, expanding his web of lies. "It is time," I said, opening the car door, knuckles white from gripping so hard. I saw them exchange quick glances, panic growing on both their faces as they tried to understand how this was possible. What went wrong? How their perfect plan failed. I started walking toward them. Daniel stayed by my side. His presence a silent promise of protection. Marcus followed a few steps behind. The crowd parted as we walked, creating a path directly to the center of the room. Toward my son and his wife. The steps seemed eternal. Each one was a declaration. Each one said, "I survived." Each one said, "You did not win." Each one said, "It is your turn to fall." We finally arrived long time ago. The man in front of me was a stranger who shared my blood but none of my values. "Goodbye, Tyler," I whispered as he disappeared through the doors. The days after the arrest were a media whirlwind I did not expect. My face was on every newspaper, every news show. The story had all the elements the press loves. Family betrayal, a dramatic twist, clear villain, and a victim who became a victor. But what the reporters did not know, what no one knew yet, was this was far from over. 4 days after Tyler and Sandra were arrested, Marcus arrived at the mansion. With news that chilled my blood. He found something while reviewing more documents. Something none of us expected. "Mrs. Crawford," he said. His expression grave as he spread papers on the dining room table. "We found something else. Something that completely changes the situation." Daniel and I leaned in to see the documents. They were deeds. Legal papers full of jargon I could barely understand. But there was one name I immediately recognized. My farm. The farm where I lived for 50 years. "What is this?" I asked, feeling a knot form in my stomach. "Tyler did not just plan to sell your farm. After you went to prison," Marcus explained. "He already sold it. Well, technically transferred it into Sandra's name. 3 weeks ago, before the final trial, he forged your signature on property transfer documents. The farm is legally no longer yours." The room seemed to tilt. Daniel held my arm, steadying me. "How is that possible?" Daniel asked, his voice dangerously calm. "How could he transfer property without her being present?" "He bribed a corrupt notary," Marcus replied. "The same one who helped with the other fake documents. We have her name. Patricia Bell. Gregory's sister. She authenticated the false signature. Dated the documents correctly. Made it all look completely legal. My farm, I whispered. Tears burned my eyes. The farm where I raised Tyler. Where his daddy died. Where I have 50 years of memories. There is more, Marcus continued. His tone told me what was coming would be worse. Sandra already put the farm up for sale. She has an interested buyer willing to pay $600,000. The closing is scheduled for within a week. That cannot be legal, Daniel said. She is arrested. She cannot complete a real estate transaction from jail. She posted bail this morning, Marcus informed us. $400,000. We do not know where she got the money, but she got out 2 hours ago. Tyler is still inside because his bail is higher. $800,000. Apparently they do not have access to that amount. Where did Sandra get $400,000? Yes. I thought they froze all accounts related to the case. Marcus exchanged a look with Daniel before answering. We believe she has an accomplice we have not identified yet. Someone with significant resources helping her from the shadows. We are investigating, but so far we have no concrete evidence. The idea that there was someone else involved. Someone who was still helping Sandra even after everything was exposed. It filled me with a fear I had not felt even during the trial. Because if there was someone else, someone with enough money and power to pay $400,000 bail without a second thought, then this was much bigger than we imagined. I need to get my farm back, I said firmly. They cannot keep it. Not after everything else. We are already working on it, Marcus assured me. We filed an emergency lawsuit this morning to nullify the property transfer based on forgery. Legal processes take time. And in the meantime, Sandra is technically the legal owner. She can sell it before we manage to stop her. Then we will stop her another way, Daniel said, pulling out his phone. If she wants to play dirty, we are going to show her what playing dirty really is. I spent the next hours listening to Daniel make calls. He contacted judges, lawyers, private investigators, people whose power and influence were clear in the way they responded immediately to his requests. It was like watching a master at work, moving pieces on a chessboard I could barely understand. That evening Marcus returned with a team of investigators. They had been following Sandra since she was released on bail. What they discovered was worse than any of us imagined. She went directly to a hotel, one investigator reported. A man named Paul. The same correctional officer who helped make the initial call to Daniel. But she was not alone. There was a man waiting for her. We identified him as Richard Morgan. Lisa's ex-husband. Emma's father. The man who abandoned his family. The man who abandoned his family, Daniel asked. His voice filled with disgust. He is the accomplice. Seems he never actually left, Paul explained. We have been tracking his finances. He has an offshore account with over $2 million. Money he apparently earned in illegal businesses over the last 7 years. And it turns out he met Sandra 3 years ago. Long before she married Tyler. She saw an opportunity in your family. Seduced Tyler specifically to get close to your money. The room fell silent as we processed this information. Sandra had been planning this for years. She met Richard. Saw an opportunity in my family. Seduced Tyler specifically to get close to my money. Everything had been calculated, planned, malicious from the start. Then Tyler was also a victim, I said. I felt a strange mix of rage and pity for my son. She used him from the beginning. That does not excuse him, Daniel said firmly. He chose to go along with the plan. He chose to betray you. Victim or not, he has to pay for his actions. There is more, Paul continued. We overheard part of their conversation. Sandra and Richard are planning to flee the country. They have tickets bought for tomorrow night to Argentina. They plan to sell the farm quickly, take the money, disappear before the legal system can reach them. Not if we stop them first, Daniel said. Paul, the first need you to keep monitoring them. Every move, every call, every person they talk to. Marcus, prepare a court order to block any sale of the property. Contact immigration. I want their names on every watch list at every airport, every border. They are not leaving this country. The operation was put into motion with efficiency that left me amazed. Daniel had resources I never imagined. People in key positions who owed him favors, who respected his name, who would act without asking why. Within hours we had 24-hour surveillance on my farm, court orders being processed, alerts at every exit point in the country. But I wanted more. It was not enough to stop them legally. I needed to face them. I needed them to know I discovered them, that their plan failed again, that they were never going to win. I want to go there, I told Daniel that night. To my farm. I want to see it one last time before all this ends. Daniel looked at me with concern. It is dangerous. Sandra knows you are there. Let her know, I interrupted. I want her to know. I want to look her in the eye and tell her exactly what I think of her, of everything she did, of how she destroyed my family. Daniel sighed, but he understood. He knew that need for closure, for a final confrontation. Then we will go together, he said, but with complete security. I will not risk your life for a moment of satisfaction. We arrived at my farm at sunset. The place that had been my home for 50 years looked different now. Almost strange. Like it no longer belonged to me. The lights were on inside. I could see shadows moving behind the curtains. Sandra was inside, probably packing, preparing for her planned escape. Daniel insisted on bringing security. 2 cars with guards followed us at a safe distance. Paul was in one of them, monitoring every move. We had constant communication with Marcus, who was ready to intervene legally at any moment. Are you sure about this? Daniel asked one more time as we approached the front door. We can still turn back. I'm sure, I said. Even though my heart was pounding so loudly I felt it might jump out of my chest. I used my key. The same one I used for decades. Wondering if Sandra had been careless enough not to change. Lux. The door opened with a soft click. We entered the foyer. The familiar smell of my home hit me with a wave of nostalgia so strong I had to stop for a moment to catch my breath. But something was wrong. Very wrong. The house was almost empty. The furniture I bought so carefully over the years. The photographs on the walls. The memories of a lifetime. Everything was gone. Only the largest pieces remained. The ones that would be difficult to move quickly. My God, I whispered, walking into the living room. They took everything. Everything of value. Daniel squeezed my hand. His face hardened with rage. We continued on, passing through rooms that had been systematically emptied. My bedroom, where I slept next to my late husband for years, was completely stripped. They even took the curtains. Voices came from the kitchen. One was definitely Sandra. The other was male. Probably Richard Morgan. We approached quietly, staying out of sight as we listened. Are you sure the buyer is going to close tomorrow? Richard was asking. We cannot risk this being delayed any longer. She confirmed this morning, Sandra replied, her voice full of satisfaction. $600,000 transferred directly to my offshore account. By this time tomorrow we will be on the plane with over $1.5 million between the farm and what we took from the old woman's accounts before they froze them. And Tyler? Richard asked. Do you not think he is going to be a problem when he finds out you left without him? Sandra let out a cruel laugh that chilled my blood. Tyler was useful as long as I needed him. But he was too weak, too emotional. He almost ruined everything with his stupid guilt. Well, it is better to leave him behind. Let him rot in prison thinking his wife abandoned him. Will be what he deserves for being so pathetic. I had heard enough. I walked into the kitchen with Daniel right behind me. Sandra was standing by the table surrounded by boxes. Richard was on the other side. A large man with a hard expression who looked at me with surprise when we appeared. Hello, Sandra, I said, keeping my voice firm even though I was trembling inside. Interesting conversation. Sandra's face transformed from surprise to terror in an instant. She dropped the box she was holding, its contents scattering across the floor. I recognized the objects. My jewelry box, framed photographs, antiques I collected over the years. How did you get in here? She demanded. partially regaining her composure. This is my house now. You are trespassing. Your house, I repeated. The words came out bitterly. Based on forged documents and a corrupt notary. Did you really think you were going to get away with it? Richard took a step forward. His posture threatening. You should leave now before this gets ugly. Daniel moved to partially block me. His voice cold as ice. I suggest you stay exactly where you are, Mr. Morgan. We have security personnel surrounding this house. They are all waiting for my signal. One wrong move and this will end very badly for you. As if to emphasize the point, Paul appeared at the back kitchen door followed by 2 security guards. Richard looked around, calculating his options. Apparently decided he had none. We also have your tickets to Argentina, I continued, taking out my phone and showing her the screen with their flight confirmations. And your offshore accounts. The 2 million you thought no one could track. Everything is being frozen right now by court order. The color drained from Sandra's face. Her eyes moved frantically, looking for an exit that did not exist. You cannot prove any of this, she said weakly. They are just accusations without evidence. We have audio recordings of your conversation from 5 minutes ago, Daniel said, where you admitted to stealing 1.5 million and planning to flee the country. Where you admitted to using Tyler and planning to abandon him in prison. I think that counts as sufficient evidence. Furthermore, I added, feeling dark satisfaction growing in my chest. Patricia Bell, the notary you bribed, has already confessed everything. She faced losing her license and possible prison, so she decided to cooperate fully. We have documents, bank transfers, text messages. Everything is documented. Sandra slumped into a chair, all her arrogance evaporating. For the first time since I met her, I saw her as she really was. A scared con artist who finally got caught. Why? I asked, needing to understand. Why did you do all this? Was it really worth destroying a family? Ruining lives? All for money? Sandra looked at me with empty eyes. Because people like you have everything without effort. Nice farm. Money saved. Respect. While the rest of us have to fight for every penny. I saw an opportunity and I took it. That is all. No, I said firmly. I worked for everything I have. Years of sacrifice. Saving every dollar. Living modestly to have security in my old age. You just wanted to steal what you did not earn. Sirens began to sound outside. Marcus requested a police unit once we confirmed we had enough evidence for additional arrests. Officers entered moments later with updated arrest warrants for Sandra, and a new one for Richard on conspiracy and money laundering charges. As they handcuffed them, Sandra looked at me one last time. Tyler really hated you, you know, she spat with venom. I did not have to convince him of much. He wanted your money as much as I did. Her words hurt. But they no longer had the power to destroy me. Because I knew the truth now. My son chose this path. He would have to live with the consequences. Goodbye, Sandra, I said as they took her out of my house. I hope the money was worth it. When they were finally gone, I stood in my empty kitchen surrounded by the remnants of my plundered life. I finally allowed the tears to flow. Daniel hugged me, holding me as I cried for everything I lost. For the family I would never have again. For the son I loved who was now lost forever. But I also cried with relief. 'Cause it was finally over. The nightmare was finally over. 8 months later, I was standing in the garden of my completely restored farm. Daniel insisted on hiring the best people to return my home to its original glory. Every piece of furniture Sandra stole had been replaced by something even more beautiful. The walls were repainted. The floors polished until they shone. It was like the farm had been purified of all the darkness that happened in it. But the most important thing was who was with me in that garden. Emma was running between the flowers I planted especially for her. Her laughter filling the air with music I did not know how much I needed to hear. Lisa was sitting on a patio chair watching her daughter with a peaceful smile. She finally found stability. Good job. Most importantly, she completely removed Emma from her father's toxic influence. Because Richard Morgan was in prison. sentenced to 18 years for conspiracy, fraud, and money laundering. Sandra was serving 14 years in federal prison. All her assets confiscated. All her accounts emptied to pay restitution. And Tyler, my son, was serving 10 years for his role in the conspiracy. The judge was more lenient with Tyler than with the others, recognizing he was manipulated to some extent by Sandra. But he still had to pay for his actions, for the signatures he forged, for the documents he knowingly presented as false, for betraying his own mother in the cruelest way possible. I tried to visit him in prison once. 3 months after his conviction. I thought maybe after everything that happened we could start some kind of healing process. But when I arrived at the visiting room and saw his face through the glass, all I found was bitterness and resentment. "You came to gloat," he said through the visiting room phone, "to show me how well you are doing while I rot here." "I came to see if there was still anything left of the son I raised," I replied calmly. "But I see there is not. That son died when you decided to marry your millionaire and keep it secret," he spat. "If you had told me the truth from the start, none of this would have happened. None of this would have happened if you had not decided to rob me and send me to prison," I corrected him. "You made those decisions, Tyler. No one else." He did not respond. He just looked at me with pure hatred. In that moment I understood there was no redemption here. No forgiveness or reconciliation. My son was gone, replaced by this bitter stranger who blamed everyone but himself. I got up to leave. But before hanging up the phone I said one last thing. "Despite everything, I wish you peace, Tyler. I hope one day you find a way to forgive yourself. Because I have already forgiven you. Not for you, but for me. So I can move on with my life without carrying this weight." I did not wait for his response. I just left. I had not been back since. But today, in this garden full of life and light, with my granddaughter laughing and my new family around me, I finally felt I had closed that painful chapter. Daniel came out of the house carrying a tray with fresh lemonade and cookies we baked together that morning. Grandma, look what I found," Emma shouted, running toward me with a butterfly on her small hand. "Can I keep it?" "Butterflies need to be free, sweetheart," I told her, kneeling to her level. "But you can watch her for a moment. Then let her go so she can return to her family." Emma nodded, seriously studying the insect with fascination. Lisa came closer and put her hand on my shoulder. "Thank you for everything you have done for us," she said softly. "Not just the financial support, though, that has been incredible, but for giving Emma a real grandmother. Someone who loves her unconditionally." "The pleasure is entirely mine," I replied sincerely. "Emma has given me a purpose I did not know I needed." Daniel sat next to me on the garden bench, putting his arm around my shoulders. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How strange life is," I said. "Months ago I was in a processing room, handcuffed, believing my life was over. Now I am here, surrounded by people who truly love me, in a home that is truly mine, with a future I never imagined possible. And with a husband who would do anything for you," Daniel added with a smile. Yes, I smiled back. "With a husband who moved heaven and earth to save me." James Cooper, the correctional officer who made all this possible, was also thriving. Daniel kept his promise. James and his family now lived in a beautiful house in Riverside Meadows, completely paid off. His wife got the medical treatment she needed. His grandson Tommy had his own room for the first time in his life. James came to visit us sometimes. Always humble, always grateful. Still unable to fully believe a simple act of kindness transformed his life that way. "I just made a call," he always said. "You did more than that, James," I replied. "You gave me hope when I had none. That is priceless." As the sun began to set over the garden, Emma finally released her butterfly and ran to sit on my lap. Daniel took my hand. Lisa started preparing dinner in the kitchen. For the first time in what seemed like decades, I felt something I forgot existed. Complete peace. It was not the ending I imagined when I married Daniel a year ago. It was not the family I dreamed of having when Tyler was a baby in my arms. But it was my family now. A family built not by blood but by choice. By kindness. by genuine love. And as I looked around this garden full of life, at this restored home, at these people who chose me as much as I chose them, I understood something fundamental. It is never too late to start over. It is never too late to find happiness. It is never too late to learn that true family is not who shares your blood, but who chooses to stay by your side when everything falls apart. I am 75 years old. I survived being a widow, betrayal, unjust incarceration, the loss of my only son. But I also found love again, met my granddaughter, built a life worth living. If there is one thing I learned from all this, it is that women my age, women who survived decades of life, who faced loss and betrayal and pain, are stronger than anyone imagines. We deserve respect. We deserve dignity. Above all, we deserve justice. When someone tries to take that away from us, we have every right to fight with every ounce of strength we have. Because we are never too old to defend ourselves. We are never too weak to demand what is ours. We are never ever invisible, no matter how much the world tries to make us believe otherwise. This is my story, and it has a happy ending. Not because everything was resolved perfectly, but because I finally learned I deserve to be happy. That perhaps is the most important lesson of all. It is a brutal yet powerful thing to realize blood relationship does not guarantee genuine connection, worth, or loyalty. Is a hard truth, especially for a parent. But accepting that a person's actions define their character, not their lineage, is the key to personal freedom. The greatest takeaway from this experience is the immense value of active self-advocacy. I had to speak up even when my voice was shaking, to activate the network of protection I did not even know I possessed. The moment I slipped that note to the officer, I transitioned from being a passive victim to an agent of my own rescue. It taught me genuine family is an intentional construction, forged in the fires of mutual respect, not merely inherited by chance. The act of forgiving, even when the offender is unrepentant, is solely for the benefit of the person offering it. A crucial step in releasing the emotional chains that bind you to past pain and building an empowered future. True recovery is about reclaiming your narrative, finding joy and purpose in unexpected new beginnings. Realizing your life is defined by the quality of the relationships you choose to cultivate rather than the ones that abandoned you. Thank you for watching Granny's Voice. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember, it's never too late to fight for what's right. See you in the next story.